So hello everybody, welcome to another video, and today I want to give you some tips and tricks for the first 4 Guardian raid bosses in tier 1, that being Ur'nil, Lumerus, Icy Legoros and Vertus. The reason I'm doing tips and tricks rather than full-on guides is because these bosses don't really need a guide. It's basically just don't die, kill boss, many loot. That's it. But there are still some things that are good to know, so let us start off with the first Guardian boss, Ur'nil. This is a big angry bear, and he doesn't really do an awful lot. It's the first Guardian boss, so you can kind of go ham on him. Just try not to stand in front of him too much, be off to the side or behind him, and if you have a counter skill, which are very useful in these Guardian boss fights, and you see him glowing blue, you can bonk him over the head to counter it. This will stun the boss for a while and let you get some free damage in there. The boss will also enrage throughout the fight, which you will notice by him having red particles around him, and if you stagger him, it will break him out of it. This boss is mostly here as a formality, just so I have all the bosses in the same video, but there is one ability that I see people get hit by a lot all the time, and it's this one right here. It's kind of like a short sequence, so a ball of energy will spawn in front of the boss and dash towards the boss. The boss will grab it and throw it backwards, which causes the ball to explode behind the boss. I think the reason why people get hit by this all the time is because they see the boss stopped moving, so they jump behind him to get some free damage in there and they get hit by the exploding ball. And that's pretty much it for Ur'nil, so let's move over to Lumerus, the second boss. This boss is extremely easy if you simply stay behind him and spank his buttocks over and over and over again. That is basically the only thing you need to do to kill this boss. He only has one ability that can actually hit you while you're behind him, so if you stick to his butt, which is very easy to do because the boss is overall very slow and can't turn around very fast, you're gonna have him down in no time. The one ability that can actually hit you while you're behind him is this one right here, where a bunch of random light patches spawn on the ground and start erupting, which does a little bit of damage. If one of those randomly spawns underneath you while you're behind him, it will do some damage to you, but that's the only way that he can damage you while you're behind him. And finally, while he does also have a charge that you can counter when he starts going blue, it's not really worth doing here because you have to be in front to counter it properly, and you don't want to do that. You want to stand behind and spank away. Next on the menu we have Icy Legoros, and this is where the fun begins because you actually have to pay attention now. So whenever he jumps backwards, like so, you immediately want to dash to the side because you will follow it with a frost breath that will freeze you. This is very dangerous, especially if you're trying to solo him, because he can combo it into a variety of different attacks that will either do a lot of damage or just straight up kill you. So once again, if you see him jump backwards, immediately dash to the side to avoid the frost breath. Then he has 2 different jump attacks, and one of them is far more dangerous. It's the one where he completely jumps off the screen and then highlights an area on the ground where he will land in like a second or so. If you're not quick enough to get out of the highlighted area, he will land on top of you and stun you, and that's bad, okay? The second jump attack is not quite as bad, it's kind of like 3 hops, so he will do the first and the second one, then wait for a second and do the third one. This one is pretty easy to avoid, just keep moving, and as long as you're not running around in a circle, he should not hit you. And finally, you need to be a little bit careful when you stagger this boss, because unlike the previous bosses, this one actually does an icy explosion when he gets up. So while yes, it's a great opportunity to get some free damage in there, make sure you dash away before he gets up. It's actually one of the most damaging things the boss can do. And that's kind of it for the Icy Legoros, so let's move on to the final boss, which is Vertus. Now, many people will say that Vertus is the first proper challenge. And that's true, Vertus is a bit of a wall, but it's a pretty shitty wall, especially if you're melee. Vertus is big, like really big, but he's also fast, and his hitbox is annoying as hell because it's so easy to get stuck on one of his legs or his tail and just be dragged around. Then on top of that, virtually all of his attacks will either stagger, stun, or freeze you. And some of his attacks seem to have no telegraphing of any kind. He will just decide to do something, and if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, you're gonna get hit. The key to success when it comes to Vertus is to not go balls deep. Wait for an opening, dash in, do some damage, dash out. And try to learn the telegraphs that he does have. Like if he moves his body this way, he will do a tail swipe. If he moves it this way, he will do a 360 spin. So those are kind of like the general tips, but there are 2 important things that you need to look out for. The first one is whenever he grabs someone, which is damn near inevitable because it's kind of like a random aimbot gotcha bitch move, you need to start doing stagger damage to the boss to stagger it so that he drops that player. Otherwise, that player will die unless they're horribly overgeared. And the second thing you need to look out for is whenever he dives under the ice, you need to run in pretty much a straight line from the area where he jumped down, and when he jumps up, you need to move over to the side. Because if he hits you as he's breaking through the ice, it will do a tremendous amount of damage, and you also want to avoid him as he's flying up on the surface. Here, by the way, you can see the grab once again. He will sort of trash around, then start moving in a random direction, throw the person in the air, and then blast them with an icy breath. If they're not overgeared like I am in this footage, they will die, so make sure you stagger the boss so he drops them. Now, there is a way to make this boss fight a little bit less, for the lack of a better word, flaily, and that's when you stagger him while he's enraged. As you can see right now, he's glowing red, which means he's enraged. If you do enough stagger damage to him, you will stagger him. If that happens, you can actually cut off the end of his tail with weak point damage, whether it's on skills or consumables, and this will disable all of his tail attacks. I, however, have never seen that done in game. I've only read about it on the wiki. And the wiki actually has a bit of a warning with this, because all the Guardian bosses get a little bit more ramped up towards the end as they're on low health, and apparently cutting off his tail triggers this ramp up as soon as you cut it off. And those are pretty much all the tips and tricks I have for the first 4 Guardian bosses, so I thank you very much for watching as always, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the video and found it helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.